As the scramble for Ugandan oil heats up, a documentary about Joseph Kony's 20-year campaign of terror has become an online cause célèbre and is once again energizing the public for military campaigns abroad. But what is the public not being told about the background of US involvement in the region, and what will come of the public's growing support for military intervention? This is the GRTV Backgrounder on Global Research TV. When oil executives announced the discovery of the largest onshore oil reserves in Africa in July 2009, the landlocked, oft-neglected East African nation of Uganda went from relative obscurity to a key partner for multinational oil conglomerates.
Beneath the scenic shorelines of Lake Albert, under the water and the lagoons, there are riches. Enough oil to dramatically change the fortune of Uganda. In full production, around 150,000 barrels of oil a day will be pumped out of this area. For now, the oil companies are still in exploration, drilling up to 4 kilometers into the earth.
Although buoyed by the news, the people of Uganda were naturally cautious, having seen how oil finds in Nigeria and Angola have brought more violence, bloodshed, and instability than peace or prosperity. These worst fears of Ugandans were lent further credence late last year when President Obama announced he would be deploying US troops on the ground in Uganda, ostensibly to help capture Joseph Kony, the charismatic leader of a small rebel force that has been accused of murders, rapes, and kidnaps in Uganda for decades. The timing of the deployment, however, coming at the exact same time as accusations that some of the highest officials in the Ugandan government were guilty of accepting bribes from international oil companies, only further confirmed that the deployment had less to do with Kony, an elusive figure who in fact left Uganda 6 years ago, and more to do with the securing of American oil interests.
First of all, this is an exchange of gifts. President Obama is giving a gift to the dictator of Uganda, Museveni, who's been in power for 25 to 26 years. And he's as responsible of human rights infringements and, in fact, attacks on civilians and murderous attacks on civilians as Joseph Kony. So Obama is sending these 100 US special forces billed as advisors. So remember Vietnam in 1961-62. It started with a bunch of advisors going to Vietnam, and we know what history taught us later. This is a civil war, and it's an ethnic war. Once again, the US is stepping right into the middle of an ethnic war that's been going on for over 2 decades. But the bigger picture is even more impressive, because this is not about Uganda itself. And even Obama admitted on the record already that these advisors are going to South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo as well. So when you look at that area in Central Africa and you see the amount of oil and the amount of mineral riches at play, and when we see that China is making inroads commercially in this area, and when we look at the AFRICOM's agenda, which is to combat China commercially via a militarization of Africa, then you understand this 100, the beginning of many that will be going to Uganda soon.
For years, American interests in Africa have been increasingly threatened by China, the resource-hungry, fast-growing second-largest economy in the world. America and its allies have noted with increasing dismay China's growing economic cooperation with Africa, including its vast investment in the infrastructure for oil exploration, drilling, and transportation in countries like Libya and Sudan. In recent years, China has been building up its relations with Uganda, and just last month, the newly appointed Chinese ambassador to Uganda, Zhao Yali, announced a series of measures to increase ties with the soon-to-be oil-rich African nation, including the granting of tariff-free exports and investments in transportation projects, power plants, and infrastructure. But now, just as China makes its overtures towards Uganda to gain a potential toehold in the region and access to the as-yet untapped oil wealth, a new video about Joseph Kony has suddenly gone viral online, having been viewed tens of million times in just 1 week, and changing the focus of the American foreign policy debate toward greater US military involvement in oil-rich Uganda. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it suggests that the only way to capture Kony is to maintain an American military presence in the region.
In order for Kony to be arrested this year, the Ugandan military has to find him. In order to find him, they need the technology and training to track him in the vast jungle. That's where the American advisors come in. But in order for the American advisors to be there, the US government has to deploy them. They've done that, but if the government doesn't believe the people care about arresting Kony, the mission will be canceled. In order for the people to care, they have to know, and they will only know if Kony's name is everywhere.
It wasn't long before Ugandans themselves took to social media to try to inject their own voice into the debate.
So basically, my major problem with this video is that it simplifies the story of millions of people in northern Uganda and makes out a narrative that is often heard about Africa, about how hopeless people are in terms of conflict, that only people of this continent can help. Yet it's not entirely true. There are local initiatives. There have been local initiatives to end this war. We know people famous like Betty Gombe. This woman is a great woman who went into the bush and tried to convince Joseph Kony to come out. And she tried, because the war was more than just an evil man killing children. The war is much more complex than just one man called Joseph Kony, and it was much more in the beginning about resources and about marginalization of people in northern Uganda. And as many people have raised, this is another video where I see an outsider trying to be a hero rescuing African children. We have seen these stories a lot in Ethiopia, celebrities coming in Somalia. It does not end the problem. I think we need to have kind of sound, intelligent campaigns that are geared towards really real policy shifts, rather than a very sensationalized story that is out to make just one person cry, and at the end of the day we forget about it.
But such words of caution have fallen on the deaf ears of a public who believe that the problem of Kony is a simple one, requiring an equally simple solution: more American troops. Just this week, a new bill was introduced in Congress that would see an expansion in regional forces in Africa. What the film's well-meaning supporters, many of them youth activists rallying behind a political cause for the first time, don't realize is that the Kony film, whether wittingly or not, is accomplishing what years of Pentagon propaganda could not muster: public support for an expanded American military role in Africa. The process of setting up a unified American military command for the continent of Africa began in 2006, with then Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld forming a committee to advise on the formation of AFRICOM. Officially established in October 2008, AFRICOM's mission statement is to strengthen our security cooperation with Africa and create new opportunities to bolster the capabilities of our partners in Africa. In reality, this provides a convenient excuse for maintaining and expanding a permanent American military presence in the region. Libya's Gaddafi was strongly opposed to the AFRICOM mission and predicted that China would ultimately have more success wooing the continent with its hands-off approach to trade and investment. In the early weeks of the Libyan bombing of 2011, AFRICOM took a lead role in the campaign, coordinating warships, aircraft, and munitions. Late last year, I had the chance to talk to former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney about AFRICOM and how the U.S. is increasingly turning its military attention to Africa in an effort to secure Africa's resources. So what is your take on why AFRICOM was established and what its real purpose is?
Well, as Cindy Sheehan would say, to provide security for the robber barons, because unfortunately the problem that exists all over the African continent is the insecurity of the people with respect to basic human needs, food and water and shelter and good governance. And instead, you've got the particular individuals who are able to wield power in Western capitals, including Washington, D.C., who are able to go in and steal the resources that ought to really accrue to the people of those countries or of that continent. So here we have a situation where the public is told one thing, and unfortunately the reality is quite a different matter.
Now, as the gears of the Washington political military complex grind into action yet again, a bewildered public is asking itself how such a phenomenon as the Kony 2012 video and attendant activist campaign arose so quickly, and what this means for the future of the political process. The campaign itself was organized around the concept of recruiting celebrities like Rihanna, Tim Tebow, and Mark Zuckerberg to promote the video. After receiving significant boosts from tweets by the likes of P. Diddy and Kim Kardashian, and media interviews by Angelina Jolie, the hype surrounding the video seemed to be a spontaneous phenomenon, but was in fact a planned PR rollout. In the end, perhaps there is something positive that can be taken out of this latest ploy to rally public support for greater military conquest. If nothing else, the Kony phenomenon has shown us that with the right video and the right marketing, any idea, no matter how periphery to the current political debate, can be catapulted into the limelight and become a rallying cry for millions. Perhaps then, like-minded activists might be able to organize a campaign around another infamous child killer, this one responsible not for kidnapping tens of thousands of children, but for killing hundreds of thousands.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Or perhaps a Bush-Cheney-Blair-Rumsfeld 2012 campaign could be mounted to bring to justice the war criminals who launched illegal wars of aggression by lying to the public about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction. Or the Obama 2012 campaign could refer not to the ongoing political campaign to re-elect the president, but an alternative campaign to hold him accountable for his moves toward outright dictatorship over America with the signing into law of the NDAA and his self-proclaimed power to assassinate American citizens on command. Or perhaps a well-made video could rally the public around a blank fine 2012 campaign to hold Goldman Sachs and its board of directors accountable for its crimes against the people of the world, from the US to Greece to the UK and beyond. No word yet on whether P. Diddy, Kim Kardashian, or Angelina Jolie will be on board with any of these proposed alternative campaigns. For more on this story and other breaking news and current events, please go to globalresearch.ca. For more research and analysis by James Corbett, please go to corbettreport.com.